Hello students, welcome to your SST history class, chapter The Delhi Sultanate. In this chapter, you will be studying about the Delhi Sultans, their works, their construction, architecture, painting styles, and so on. Students, in class 6th history, we have not heard of this place Delhi. This place Delhi became the capital of India much later in the history line. It got its importance only after the 12th century. Delhi was ruled by 5 Islamic kings from 13th to the end of 15th century, around 300 years. Later on, the Mughals came, and which stayed for around 200 years, and then came the British, who ruled for around 200 years. If we see the dateline or the timeline, it was first the Rajputs, the Tomar Rajputs, who came to Delhi. Then came the Turkish rulers, Aibak, or the slave dynasty we can say. Then came Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, and Lodhis. If we were to say, how did we come to know about, or how do we come to know about the Delhi Sultans? From where do we get this information? The information on Delhi Sultans is derived from the coins which were minted at that time. Those have been unearthed. They were called the Delhi Vals. The inscriptions on the monuments and the architecture, the way of the architecture. The tarikhs in single and tuarikhs called in plural were the written records by the learned people of that time. They wrote about the sultans. Now, these people didn't write about the common people, they only wrote in praise of the Delhi sultans. As we have read in class 6, the Prashastis were the long poems. Now, at this time, it were the tarikhs and the tuarikhs. They were written in praise of the kings, and in return, they got the rewards from the kings for all that they wrote. Okay, now let's see the architectural structure or architectural constructions done during this time. You have heard about Qutub Minar, very famous building. It was the first architectural symbol of India. In 1192, Qutbuddin Aibak had started the construction of this Qutub Minar. This was the tallest minar made up of marble and red sandstone. Then we have Ali Darwaza, built by the second Sultan of Delhi, Alauddin Khilji, in 1311. Lodhi Gardens, very famous Lodhi Gardens of Delhi, and Tomb of Muhammad Shah. These were built in the 14th century by the rulers of Sayyid and Lodhi dynasty. These monuments can be still seen at Delhi. Now, if we talk about the administration of the Delhi Sultans, all the rulers faced challenges. In those days, Delhi was divided into 4 parts. One area was called Siri, Jahanpana, Delhi-e-Kuna, and Tughlaqabad. This, in a way, it was a fortified town which had hinterlands all around. Now, what are hinterlands? In common terms, hinterland, this word is a German word which means land beyond that. So we can say the rural land or the wasteland that was lying around was cleared out, and it was used for the building up the centers or the garrison towns, we can say. by the different rulers. Alauddin Khilji, he constructed Siri for the convenience of army people. He charged taxes on houses, cattle, cultivation. Now, this amount was paid to the army in the form of salaries. He was a successful administrator. Then came the Tughlaqs. He started the token currency, but he could not control the prices. He kept additional taxes. No new garrison town was constructed by him. He just renovated the 4 old cities and made them as the army centers. In a way, he remained a failure in his administration. Next, we read about this term circle of justice. What was circle of justice? According to it was important for military commanders to keep the interests of the peasantry in mind, because a king cannot survive without soldiers. Now, peasantry means the common people or the farmers. Now, the soldiers cannot live without salaries. Salaries of the soldiers came from the revenue collected from the peasants. But peasants can only pay revenue when they are prosperous and happy. So this was a little circle, and this was called as the circle of justice. Next, if we see how far the Delhi Sultanate extended, if we see the internal frontiers, it included the hinterlands of the garrison towns between Ganga, Yamuna, Doab area, and external frontiers included areas to southern India. That far it extended to. The main development or expansion of the Delhi Sultanate came under Muhammad Tughlaq and Alauddin Khilji. In the lesson, we read about Razia Sultan. She was the daughter of Iltutmish. Iltutmish was, you can say, the last ruler of the last ruler of the Aibak or the slave dynasty. She was the most able and qualified than all her brothers. She came to throne, but very soon the nobles were not happy at her attempts to rule independently, especially Miraj-e Siraj. He led out a protest against her and she was removed, because women at that time were considered weaker section. Then it is believed that Ghiasuddin Balban, he succeeded her. Just in 4 years, she was removed. Then we read about two other women, Rudrama Devi and Dida. Rudrama Devi ruled pretending to be a man, and Dida was one ruler. Didi was a title of Kashmir. Next in the lesson, we read about this term masjid. A mosque in Arabic is called a masjid. It is a place where Muslims offer prayers. In those times, big masjids, for example, the Jama Masjid, we all have heard of, and maybe you must have seen also, was one place where Muslims read prayers together. Imam, he was the leader, and he used to issue the sermons for the people. Muslims, while doing their prayers, stand facing Makkah. In India, it is towards the west. This is called Qibla. Several masjids were built all over the subcontinent in a way to promote Islam and Muslims to create a sense, of community. So all this was about the Delhi Sultans. One very important point: no aristocrat or high landed chief were appointed as governors. Common people, cooks, slaves, barbers, gardeners, experienced people were given high ranks and positions of generals and governors. Now, all this led to political instability. All new sultans brought their own servants. So, in the end, we can say this was the time when Delhi came into the map of history. Persian language got highlighted. Lot of construction took place, which can still be seen in Delhi, and new administrative reforms got made. That's all. Thank you. And now you can read the chapter in your book. Have a nice day.